Because I want to welcome in my guest for this hour, national trial attorney Michael Jaafar. Thank you for being with us on this busy Tuesday. And I'm looking forward to hearing your insight on this, because this appears to be a very seasoned defense attorney, and she's really picking apart the investigation. And I'm wondering, from your perspective and your analysis, if it's beneficial that this case is so old, because this crime happened in 2019, as the state alleges. And back then, they don't wear body cameras like they do now, but the jurors in the box are used to today's policies and the way things are done today.
Great insight, Matt. Yes, that's exactly how it is. When I was a young attorney, on my training, when I was becoming a public defender, on the first day of training, the seasoned attorney told us everything you can do to kick a case down the road, you do, right? And the more serious the crime, the more pushy you become on delaying dates, right? It was just ingrained in us since day one. So yes, it absolutely helps the defendant that this crime happened in 2019. I'm still kind of baffled that he was out on bail even after all the stuff that came out about the incident. But yes, this crime is old. This crime is before COVID-19 happened, a year before COVID-19 happened. So it's a very, very, very old thing. So it does help him. The defense attorney is doing a fantastic job, right? She obviously has to contend with some really, really grotesque facts. So she knows that the jury, by the time this case is done, the jury is going to have to weigh a very big, massive, difficult burden for her and her client, which is the statements by the victim as she was dying, right? She's going to have to contend with that by the end of this trial. So for now, she wants to make this as boring as possible. She wants to poke as many holes in the investigation as possible. And it's going to be easy for her to do it, Matt. You know why? Because when this incident first happened, police were not really involved. This was not really investigated as a crime at the beginning. It was investigated as a medical situation. Only when the victim came back to life and told everybody what happened was it really investigated aggressively as a crime. We know that this defense attorney is a very prominent attorney. She's doing a fantastic job. I don't think anybody could do a better job than she's doing right now.
And I think that she's easy to listen to. She's relatable to this jury that's in the box, that's going to have a tough decision in front of them. But this is a fascinating case playing out. All right, Michael Jaafar, you're going to stick with us for the hour. Thank you so much. And that's going to do it for Captain Stallings there with Colleton County Sheriff's Office. What did you think about her testimony? Let us know on social media. Maybe we'll read it on the air. Still with us, national trial attorney Michael Jaafar. Michael, now what really stood out to me is probably the big question on everybody's minds, because this is a side part of this case, right? The bigger question, which we're going to get into, is the murder, whether or not it was murder, and how she ended up on fire. But was it an unlawful detainment?
I don't think that the defense attorney was able to show that this was an unlawful detainment. I think what she showed is that it's a good old boy network. It shocked me when it turned out that I think the sheriff or one of them was her daughter Terry Ann was the tenant of one of the law enforcement officers. The whole thing was bizarre. It was disorienting. It showed that she showed that it was a good old boy network, and that later on, she's going to argue in her closing argument that, hey, you can't really trust anything that happened here. You have no idea, because at the end of the day, we know when we get into the murder side of it, we know that she was excused. The daughter was excused from the room when the police took a recorded statement. So I think this is part of her narrative to show that anything that the police did and the law enforcement officers did in this investigation is suspect, because they didn't give him a fair shake. And it started with the whole entire arrest and with how they treated him. And then she came in and she changed her report to say that he left when in fact he was asked to leave. I think this is beginning. Remember, she's cross-examining, right? So these are not her witnesses. So she cannot choreograph who comes in and what comes in. She just has to cross-examine what the state gives her. So the state decided to call this witness in this order. She's cross-examining. We now know what her narrative is. We now know how she's going to fight the eventual recorded statement of the victim, her dying declaration. We now know how she's going to fight it. She just gave us her playbook. She's going to fight it by saying, this is a good old boy network. Everything is botched. It was tunnel vision, not even tunnel vision. They had ulterior motives to basically not frame my client, but to basically paint him in a light that's not correct. That's what her playbook is, and she started it today.
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up, because we heard that quite a bit at this particular courthouse right there in Colleton County with Alec Murdaugh, and that's what the viewers are talking about right now. And you know, she alluded to this, that this is how she was going to attack this case in opening statement, saying, You know Colleton County. You're a resident here. You understand the culture. So she's diving into that.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what she has to do. Because at the end of the day, eventually the recorded statement, how else can you phrase it as a defense attorney other than this is wrong, my client was wrong, this was basically put together. And by the way, we're going to get to this, but kudos to the detective that asked the daughter to be excused from the room. Because if the daughter was in the room, then this defense attorney would have I know we haven't gotten there yet, but this defense attorney would have a field day. And you're right, she alluded to it, and you know Colleton County. So this is her only playbook, and this is a very powerful playbook. And listen, I'm not going to mention names of other cases, but this has worked before many, many, many times, and it works for a reason, because sometimes it's correct. But even when it's not correct, as a defense attorney, you have to argue. They tell you in law school, if you have the law on your side, argue the law. If you have the facts, argue the facts. If you don't have anything, just argue and see what happens.
All right, Michael Jaafar, thank you for being with us this hour, and it'll be interesting to see how this case progresses.